Good afternoon. I want to thank folks for coming here today to have an opportunity to update people on what we're hearing. And I'm going to start out by saying that my heart goes out to the family of the two individuals who were despicably gunned down in Washington, D.C. And since we originally received word of the shooting, we worked very hard to try to coordinate with the Guard, the federal government, the families, and everyone to ensure that the state's response is appropriate. I want to update people. First, there'll be a lot of questions about the condition. I want to say I'm not the doctor. I'm not going to try to pretend to be so. What I will say is that Andrew remains in serious condition. We did have some positive news that we were told that Andrew was asked if he could hear the nurse who asked the question to give a thumbs up, and he did respond. And we were told that he also wiggled his toes. So we take that as a positive sign. I'm not here to speculate, but I will say one thing, that Melody, the mom, has been so positive a force, and she's been asking people across the country to pray for her son, and those prayers are working. So I want to continue. That's her only request to me is, would you please get the word out that my son Andrew needs prayer? And that's all I'm going to do, talk about that. These are wonderful people, and the family's going through a very difficult situation right now as Andrew fights to survive. There are many vigils that are going on around West Virginia right now. I had a chance to attend one in Martinsburg in honor of Andrew, and go down to Webster County on Saturday night. It was a really very touching vigil. People were talking so eloquently about Sarah, who by all counts is an amazing woman who lifted up people around him with a smile. And from talking to Sarah's parents and to people in the unit, everyone had nothing but incredible things to say about Sarah. And she is someone who's going to be remembered for a very, very long time. And she had her life tragically cut short by this terrible act of terrorism. We know that late last week I issued a proclamation, so the flags have been lowered to half staff, and that will continue. Obviously, when we have information about any service or funeral, we will let you know. I want to emphasize that the most important thing for me is to ensure that the family's wishes are kept. So as we learn more, we're happy to pass that along, but this is going to be dictated by the family, and I want to show great respect for them. I know that there are going to be a lot of questions about the timeline for when this occurs. Just as we learn things, we'll be happy to pass them along to you. You know, a lot of questions come up about the nature of the service that the Guardsmen were performing. This was noble service. I had a chance, along with General Seward, to spend Thanksgiving Day with the members of the unit at the Armory and talk to them. Every single one of the people who are there right now are volunteering. We're looking at approximately 170 people from the West Virginia National Guard that are still stationed in D.C., and once again, they're volunteering. They're volunteering because they believe in the mission. They want to support the state of West Virginia. They want to support the country, and I think that can't be lost. These are people that understand that the mission was good, that there was an opportunity to try to reduce crime in the District of Columbia. By all measures, it's been working, and so I know that they're proud of that work. They're understandably going through a very, very difficult time right now because they lost one of their own, and another is in very serious condition. But it is the state of West Virginia's intent, my intent, General Seward's intent, to do everything we can to help those guardsmen adjust to this and to help the families of those who were impacted. We know that there's a lot of information that hasn't yet come out, and there will be more information in the days, weeks, and months ahead. There is a comprehensive investigation going on by the federal government. You know, I've had a chance to talk to the president, and I've talked to the attorney general, and we're going to make sure that we're deferring to that process. I am reassured that there is a complete and full investigation going on, so while there'll be a lot of pundits who want to speculate about what happened and wrongly go to different places, we're not going to do that. We're not going to play into that. We're going to talk about this based on the facts that we know, and at this point, that investigation is ongoing. We know that there's been a lot of discussion about a criminal prosecution as well. The most important thing that I can tell the citizens of West Virginia is people are rightfully angry. They're rightfully angry about what's happening right now. And I believe that justice must be done in this case, and that justice will be meted out. That'll be done based upon our criminal justice system, and it'll be done the right way. And as we learn more about the process that's being run by the feds, we're happy to share that with you. We're trying to stay in touch with all the relevant people on the ground to provide information to the public. When we left Wednesday night. I flew up with the Guard to go to the hospital. I believe I was at the hospital at least 4 times, and obviously we spent time with the Guards members. There's no timeline as to what will happen in terms of additional visits, but what I can tell you is that Andrew's family is going to get all the help that we can provide out of West Virginia. Right now, a lot of that is emphasizing the need for prayer, and I want to keep saying that because I believe that prayer can move mountains. It can create miracles, and I know that Melody, Andrew's mom, and Jason, Andrew's dad, believe that. And these are people, they're good folks, and I think a lot of the communities are rallying behind them. We know that since this tragedy occurred, there have been a number of additional announcements by the president, and I think he's working hard to get to the bottom of this. I also want to express my support for some of the new vetting proposals that are being talked about. I think when you have millions of people that come in, undocumented aliens, or there are loopholes, as what had presumably happened in this particular situation, that has to be cleaned up, and I applaud President Trump for his efforts, what he's doing to look at all of that in order to get to the right place. So we know that there's going to be a lot that'll be coming up in the days and weeks ahead. I wanted to come before you so I can answer questions you have. I would ask that there are going to be some areas that you asked that we're not going to get out ahead of the medical personnel. I'm not going to get out ahead of the families, and we're not going to get ahead of the criminal investigation. So with that as the caveat, I'd first like to turn it over to General Seward, who has been leading admirably, and he'll say a few words, and then we will take questions.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. I want to tell the members of the West Virginia National Guard that our family has joined together across this state and in D.C. Our family members in the Guard that are in the Middle East, that are in Europe, that are on the southwest border. I've heard from all of those regions, and we're praying together. We are a family, 6,000 plus strong, and so when we lose one of our family members, I can tell you that every guardsman I've talked to is grieving, and that grieving process in the early stages includes denial and anger and bargaining, and I've heard from all of our members of how they're going through those phases, and I promise you that my senior enlisted leader, Dusty Jones, and we've been up there since Wednesday. I was actually in the district when it occurred. I was not on scene. My wife and I got picked up and taken on scene shortly thereafter. And those soldiers and airmen that were present were strong, courageous, and they were grieving. And they continue to grieve. And they continue to pray for Andy and for Sarah's family and for all of their fellow members that are serving across the world. I will tell you that they're standing strong. Our men and women are trained professionals. They are deputized U.S. Marshals in the district. When they're on patrol, they're armed, and they are trained. I'm confident in their ability. I remain confident in their ability. In briefings with senior law enforcement officials in the district this week, I will tell you that dozens of them have told me, those involved in the investigation, that our members performed their duties as they have been trained, and they are proud of them, and I am proud of them. Because Andy's mom has asked for prayers, I will reiterate that I spoke with her last night before I left, and she said if I got the chance to talk to anyone, to please ask them to continue to pray for Andy, their family, for Sarah's family, and for all of our National Guard. Thank you.
Thank you. As we're all gathered today, we know that a lot of people in West Virginia, the Guard, the families of the individuals who were gunned down, we know that there's unspeakable evil that's occurred. Unspeakable evil. I want to take a moment also, though, and emphasize the amazing positive response of the people of West Virginia, of how the families have reacted, how the communities are stepping up, people showing support through prayers, through other types of acts. West Virginia comes together during these difficult times, and they stand behind the men and women in uniform. And we're certainly going to continue to stand behind the men and women in uniform and do everything we can to help them, not just today, but in the weeks and months ahead. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from folks. Stephen.
Governor, you've used the phrase volunteer pretty frequently. I know you had some social media posts where you put it all in bold. So I think it's pretty clear that since November 17th, the force that remains, 770 we're talking about, are there as volunteers part of the original force that you authorized back in August to be there at the request of President Trump, and these are strictly volunteers. But walk us through that decision, because at least according to the November 8th press release from the West Virginia National Guard, you are the one that authorized the volunteer force to remain there. So who asked us to keep a volunteer force there? How did that decision come about to keep this contingent there through the end of the year?
Absolutely. So we know that we entered the district back in August, and after that happened, there were questions about how many people would be in the district, contributions from West Virginia and from other different states. So there's usually a rotation that occurs in terms of when guardsmen stay, and that as there are questions about how long we would stay, I made the decision to have the word come down that we would ask the people if they wanted to volunteer. And there was never any pressure. This was done that if people wanted to stay and fulfill the mission, they could. I was pleased to report that between about 160 and 170 people had asked to do that. And so that's why I emphasize that these are people that knew the mission. They agreed with the mission. I think the mission has been largely successful, and they wanted to serve their state and they wanted to serve their country. So I had extensive conversations with the National Guard, and I wanted to make this voluntary, because anytime someone is doing that, there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved, and people give up time with their families. They take leave from work. They leave their communities, especially during the holiday season. But these are people that wanted to be there, and they wanted to continue the mission. Brad?
Brad McElhenney, West Virginia Metro News. Can you drill down with a little more detail? Who puts out the call to volunteer? And then how do people respond? Is it raise your hand, go to someone and say, I would like to fill out some forms? Technically, what is the process?
I can speak.
Yeah, General, do you want to speak to that?
Sir, we put out the call with our joint office. I have a joint operations team. Let's give a for instance. We have a normal rotational schedule that we do, but in most instances, like flood duty, we first reach out and see who can volunteer, and we do that at the unit level before they go. Then, once they're on mission, we had soldiers there, soldiers and airmen, for about 45 days, and we rotated which group, that group with a fresh group. And then when we found out that Secretary of the Army was extending the mission in DC, we were asked how many we might be able to provide. After discussions with the governor and his decision to see who wanted to remain on mission, we had our commander in DC survey the troops. And that survey, I wish I could tell you if it was a form or a show of hands. I know they signed up, probably on a piece of paper, and we found out how many volunteers we had that were willing to stay. Before the shooting, we also have future planned operations, which I can't go into the details of those, but that normal rotational schedule is something we do on missions like this that are longer than 30 days.
Thank you. John?
Governor, the Trump administration has ordered 500 more Guard members to Washington. Have there been discussions, or are you going to deploy any additional troops to?
So I spoke with the president. That was on Wednesday night. I have not been asked to deploy additional troops at this time. So anything with respect to the number or where they'll come from, right now, that's not part of our focus. Our sole focus right now is to looking after the well-being of the 170 service members who are on the ground, focusing on the family, ensuring that prayers are going out, but there's been no request that's come to West Virginia so far.
And don't want to jump ahead again, but you talked about nothing about the funeral yet. Are there any plans for Sarah to bring her home? When will that happen?
I know there are a number of discussions that are underway, but this is going to be a situation where I'm going to defer to the family. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that the family's wishes are carried out. And so when it's appropriate, we'll make any announcements based upon the family's decision. Hey.
For the National Guard members who remain in DC, is there flexibility for them to return home if they no longer feel comfortable serving in DC following this event?
Well, I know that this is a volunteer effort, and in fact, I know Sarah bravely was there during Thanksgiving, so it still remains a volunteer effort, and that's where we stand right now.
Any anticipation for when they could be called home, or how long are they signed up for the mission until whenever it ends indefinitely?
I think, as the general would indicate, there's a periodic review and discussion about the length, and so there's always opportunity where you have the ability for some people to try to come home for holidays and Christmas, but I don't think we have a specific date in mind yet.
Are you able to tell us the MOS of the two guardsmen and if they had any specialized training before they were deployed to DC?
I don't know that we're prepared to do that at this time. Is there anything we want to? I don't think so. Do you have if there's another question you have.
That might get into the investigation.
Yeah, I don't want to go into the investigation at all, so.
Can you describe, there were sent into an area that was designated as having a crime emergency. Can you describe, to the detail that you're comfortable with, what kind of self-defense training people on that mission received, being on alert, watching for?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing to say is that this is like being a deputy U.S. Marshal. So these are people that are trained, and they have knowledge of the situation they're going into. These are the same people that go to all corners of the globe. They're trained in terms of difficult circumstances. So as General Seward indicated, we believe that they have the background and training to go in to Washington, D.C. to carry out the mission. Other questions? Go ahead, sir. And what's your name, sir?
Matthew Young, I'm with the Charles Center.
Hey, Matthew.
So, there were some conflicting reports that came out, information that came out on Wednesday regarding the condition, obviously.
Sure.
The two Guards members. State national outlets took that information and reported it.
Sure.
Where was the breakdown in the communication chain? What steps can be taken to prevent something like that from happening?
So what I would say is this, when you have a lot of information coming in, you work to ensure that you have the most accurate information and you get it from the most credible sources available and then provide that to the public. When there's a change, then you alert the public. If there's an error, you correct the error. That's what happened, and that's what we did. So I won't go into additional details at this time, but I will say that we've been in very close touch with the family and everyone involved in order to make sure that anything that gets passed along is, the direction of the parents and that the Guard is very comfortable with.
Follow up on that question, though. You can't, for example, obviously there was an initial announcement of both deaths. That was obviously walked back by your office. Where did that information come from? Did that come from social media news? Did it come from the chain of command?
I could tell you that the process is that we try to get as much information as we can, accurate information from the most credible sources, a variety of sources. In this case, that information was incorrect, and then within 20 minutes, we changed it. Ma'am?
What are some of the tangible things you guys are going to be doing in DC to help make sure the troops who are still there get through this process in a
Yeah.
tangible way?
Well, we know that there are a number of foundations that have stepped up who are being helpful, and we know that counseling is available for all people who may need assistance. And one thing that I really want to emphasize is that we want to make sure that the morale, remains high. And that's part of the reason I went to Washington, D.C., obviously to go to the hospital and to be there with the families, but also to be there with the men and women who are serving. That's critically important. So that's certainly, there's going to be a lot of efforts underway, both through the Guard and other outside foundations to provide all the help that's needed to assist any of the Guardsmen and any of their families.
You might
Stephen.
not be able to provide this information. This might be information that might have to be released by the families, but there are a number of GoFundMes and other entities popping up claiming to be on behalf of both families. Are you aware of any authorized GoFundMes or any type of fundraising efforts for both families? Has that been communicated to National Guard or Governor's Office?
I'm not aware of any that are authorized. I know that the family, Andrew's family, had indicated specifically they did not authorize. I can't speak to the other family, to Sarah's family, but if we learn about that, we're happy to answer that further. Any final questions? I just want to say, as we get more information, we're going to be able to pass that along. So I appreciate your patience during this time. But most importantly, my biggest message is Andrew is still fighting for his life. Andrew needs prayers. And the parents have said, please use every opportunity to ask for prayers. And that's what we're going to do. I think that the West Virginia people are strong, and they know that everything is being done right now to ensure that justice is served. But equally important, we have to make sure we're doing everything possible to send prayers and to console people who are going through just unspeakable times right now. So thank you for coming, and God bless.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you.
All right.